All right, good day, everyone. Today's lesson, we're going to be talking about quadratic inequalities. So pretty similar to what we've been seeing, dealing with things like quadratic equations, factoring, everything like that. But now instead of dealing with an equal to zero, we're going to be dealing with a quadratic inequality, which is going to be greater than, less than, or greater than or equal to zero. Okay. The whole idea of this is basically trying to understand what values are going to be above and below the value of zero. Okay. For example, just kind of give you some clarity on this, some context. If I were to deal with a quadratic equation, things that we've been seeing are similar to what we see here. Okay, if that's our coordinate plane, quadratic equations look similar to this. Okay, well, the thing we want to try to analyze is this, the x-axis is technically zero. Okay, well, notice how half the graph is above it, half the graph is below it. If I focus on just these two coordinates right here, okay, I can pretty much assume that everything in between these two coordinates, or in other words, this line is below zero, while everything above those two coordinates, for example, this line and this line, are positive, right? Because all I really have to do is focus on my x-axis to see that half the graph's in the positive area, half the graph's in the negative area. Well, that's kind of the whole idea here. If this is zero right here at this blue line, well, then everything above it has to be where x is greater than, excuse me, I should say everything above it has to be where it is greater than zero. So whatever you have is going to be bigger than zero. Everything below it's going to be where you're less than zero. Okay? And that's kind of the main idea that I want you to think about in this lesson. That's kind of what we're going to be looking at is where is the graph going to be bigger or smaller than that value? If the x-axis is kind of the middle point where it's splitting at, if you're above it, you're bigger than zero. If you're below it, you're less than zero. Okay? So here's how we're going to work these out. I'm going to be honest when I say this, pretty much everything we do with these problems is going to be almost the same exact thing we would do as if we were going to be solving it or just factoring it. Okay, for example, we have 2x squared plus x minus 10. So let's work that out. 2x squared plus x minus 10. Okay. Now, when we work this out, how it is, we're going to start factoring. Well, we have our x method. We go first times the last on top, which is negative 20, if I can write. We go the middle value on bottom, which is just going to be 1 because it's just a 1x. We have two numbers that multiply to the top, add up to bottom. The two come out to be 5 and negative 4. Multiplied give me negative 20, added give me positive 1. So now we go ahead and rewrite those. We have 2x squared and negative 10. First and the last number stay the same. In the middle, we plug in a 5x and a minus 4x. We group, and we start to solve. 2x squared plus 5x, I can take out an x out of both of those. That would leave me with a 2x plus 5. Negative 4x minus 10, I can take out a negative 2. And when I do that, I'm left with a 2x plus 5. Notice how the two values match. Because of that, that's going to give me the answer, x minus 2 and 2x plus 5. Now notice everything up to this point has literally just been factoring. We went through x method, we got the whole terms, we grouped them, we pulled out the common factor, and we got to our final answer. Well, now what I'm going to do is separate them and set them equal to 0. So now I actually want answers for each of them. Notice how I'm not even worrying about the inequality. This really doesn't matter to me right now. Okay? At the end of the problem, we'll talk about it, but currently, don't care about it. So I'm going to set this x minus 2 equals 0. 2x plus 5 equals 0. When we solve this out, we get x equals 2 because we add the 2 over. This comes out to be x equals negative 5 over 2, or negative 2.5 for that value. And so we get our two specific answers. So right now, everything is what we've talked about in the past. Okay, we've done our X method. We've factored it. We worked everything through it. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and talk about what we do with inequality. So with inequality, once we get the answer, that's like half the battle. We've got everything done. We're taking care of it. Okay. So what I want to come up to here is actually plot this out. So I'm going to plot a coordinate at 2, one of our answers, and negative 2.5. Okay. Notice on top of that, I did closed circles because going back to this, anytime you have a less than or equal to, I'm going to use closed circles. If this was just greater than or equal to, I would have open circles instead. Okay, so that's another kind of key thing just to bring back and remember. But we have two closed circles at 2 and negative 2.5. The next step is we're going to test a value in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and test 0. Okay, the number that's in between my two coordinates. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and actually plug it back into the original. So the 2x squared plus x minus 10. Okay. So I have 2x squared plus x minus 10. I'm going to basically plug 0 in for this, and I'm going to see if this is a true or false statement. Well, I plug this in. This becomes 2 times 0 squared, which is going to cancel itself out, plus 0, which is going to cancel itself out, minus 10 is less than or equal to 0. So now basically what I'm left with here is negative 10 is less than or equal to 0, which is a true statement. And because it is true, I'm going to basically shade everything that's in between these two dots. Okay, if that was a false statement, I'd shade away from those two dots. Okay? And that's really all we're doing in this section, right? We think about it. It's kind of like taking what we did with like absolute value inequalities, where we had to like test, shade, all that stuff, and we're applying it with our factoring technique. Okay, so we're kind of mixing two different things together that we've talked about in the past. Okay. Besides that, make sure you're answering any questions on the video, and we'll be going over this in class tomorrow. See you then.